Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. Continuing on with college football week 7. Got some more Conference USA action on Wednesday Night Football. Let's get into it.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
So first up, we got UTEP on the road at Florida International. The line is now FIU -2. That has moved. It was at FIU plus 1.5, so it's moved a full 3.5 points there. Total sitting at 44. So like I said, it opened at FIU plus 1.5, and everyone absolutely hammered Florida International at that number. Moved 3.5 points. Now that line movement could be a reaction of all the bets coming in on FIU. It also could be an indication that Gavin Hardison is going to play for UTEP. But as it stands right now, as I'm recording this late Tuesday night, it's FIU -2 and the public is on FIU. Well, this game comes down to a pretty simple question, and I already hinted at it. Is Gavin Hardison playing a quarterback or not for UTEP? Because we saw last game, UTEP has zero passing attack without him on the field. In the 5 games Hardison played, he's averaging 227.4 passing yards per game, 7.24 yards per attempt, 120 passer rating. Last game against Louisiana Tech, UTEP used 3 different quarterbacks because they kept getting hurt, and we'll get to that in a second. All 3 of those quarterbacks combined to throw for just 101 yards in that game. 3.79 yards per attempt. That's absolutely disgusting. A 64 passer rating. So the passing game without Gavin Hardison was literally non-existent. As of a few days ago on October 6th, Gavin Hardison, Jake McNamara, and Kevin Hurley, that's QB1, QB2, and QB3 for UTEP, none of them were cleared to practice. None of them had practice. That was as of October 5th. So we could, I have no idea, college football's weird with these injury reports, but we could be looking at UTEP starting their 4th string quarterback in this game. One thing I will say, Gavin Hardison's mostly a pocket passer, and it seems like their other options can run because they were able to get the run game going a little bit against Louisiana Tech. 224 yards on the ground on 4.9 yards per carry. But that was at home, and still it didn't even help. They scored just 10 points in the game and went 3 of 17 on third downs. So if you're running the ball, you still have to pass it at some point. Now, FIU might have the worst run defense in the conference. They're allowing 220 yards per game on the ground in their 3 Conference USA matchups, but they played Liberty and New Mexico State. Those teams are 1st and 2nd in the conference in rushing efficiency, so I don't think this FIU defense is quite as bad as you think. Now, on the other side of the ball, FIU analytically has one of the worst offenses in college football, the worst rated offense, I should say. Beta Rank has them sitting at 133rd, so dead last. But something to keep in mind, when Keon Jenkins took over as quarterback, he's a freshman. The first 3 games, he looked good, throwing for 289 yards a game. They went 3-0. FIU won 3 in a row. Now, their last 2 games, the numbers dramatically plummet, but they played Liberty and New Mexico State, 2 of the better teams in that conference, so I'm not going to just throw out what we saw in the first 3 games from him. I mean, 289 yards a game, a passer rating over 150. He's only 5'11", and he's a freshman, but don't sleep on this kid. He's good. And now he's back at home against a UTEP team that's been pretty awful on the road. UTEP is 0-3 on the road, averaging just 10.3 points per game and allowing 28.7. So UTEP's been terrible on the road. I can't believe I'm considering laying points with FIU, but I feel like I got to go with the Panthers in this one. I don't want to place a bet. I'm going to try to wait and see if we hear something about Gavin Hardison, but it doesn't look like he's going to play. And if he doesn't play, I have to take FIU -2. Now, if he's announced last minute that he is playing, maybe I'll get screwed on this one. But as it stands right now, I'm taking FIU -2 next game. Sam Houston State on the road at New Mexico State. Aggies laying 3.5 points at home. Total sitting at 42. So this line actually was at New Mexico State -4.5. And the early action looked to be coming in on the Aggies. But then look at that huge swing. Public is now leaning towards Sam Houston State, and as a result, line dropped down to 3.5. So I haven't bet on a Sam Houston game this year yet, because I truly just don't know much about the team. Jacksonville State's also a new FBS team, but I've watched a few of their games now. I know Rich Rodriguez. I'm starting to get to know the quarterbacks, Smothers and Zion Webb. I feel more comfortable betting those games. This Sam Houston team, I'm still getting to know. They started out the season 0-5, but it's not nearly as bad as you'd think. They've been playing teams tough. They're actually 3-1-1 against the spread, so they've outperformed expectations. One thing we can say about Sam Houston, they're playing some good defense right now, especially against the run. On the road in Liberty, they held Liberty to just 191 yards on the ground on 4.44 yards per carry. And you might be thinking, yo, that's not really shutting them down. Look at Liberty's rushing numbers in their other 4 games. Over 271 yards per game on 5.99 yards per carry. Sam Houston State on the road held Liberty to their worst offensive performance of the season. Final score of that game was just 21-16. And then look at the Air Force game. In their other 4 games, Air Force has averaged over 337 rush yards per game on 5.38 yards per carry. Against Sam Houston, just 244 yards on 4.14 yards per carry. Final score of that game was just 13-3. Those are probably the 2 most efficient rushing attacks in the country outside of Power 5 schools, obviously. Both had their worst offensive days of the season against the Sam Houston State defense. They may be 0-5, but when it comes to limiting opponents' run game, you've got to give Sam Houston some credit this year. Now, you would think New Mexico State would be a pass-first offense. They got Diego Pavia at quarterback. He can throw it. But actually, that's not what the Aggies have been doing at all. New Mexico State has run the ball on 55.43% of their offensive snaps this season. That's 31st in the FBS, so this has been a run-first team. Now, you might look at New Mexico State's rushing numbers and see that they average 6 yards per carry as a team this year, which is 5th best in the FBS. But they're rated just 92nd in effective rush. Why? Because they haven't played a legitimate run defense yet. So theoretically, Sam Houston should be able to limit this run game a bit. So that means there's going to be pressure on Diego Pavia to make plays in the passing game, and he was able to do that last week against FIU. 20 of 31, 256 yards, couple touchdowns and a pick. In the 3 games before that, though, he dropped back to pass just 15, 14, and 21 times. So they have not been utilizing him much as a passer recently. I would imagine against Sam Houston, we're going to see him drop back closer to 30 times again. But it's one thing to drop back 31 times against FIU, who doesn't have much of a defense. It's another thing to drop back 31 times against Sam Houston, because FCS team or not, this defense looks good against the run and the pass. 57th in effective rush, 68th in effective pass. Those are excellent numbers for a Conference USA program, especially one that just became an FBS program. Now, if you're wondering how Sam Houston State's getting 3.5 points in this matchup, playing defense like they are, well, it's because of their offense. Their offense, it's about as bad as it gets in the FBS. They're basically dead last in all 3 major categories. Just to give you an idea of how bad this Sam Houston offense has been, on the season, they're averaging just 3.8 yards per play and 10.8 points per game. It's that bad. But I actually have a couple positive angles for Sam Houston State's offense, as crazy as that is to say. So analytically, New Mexico State will be the weakest defense Sam Houston's seen so far this year by a good margin, actually. Look at this schedule from Sam Houston State. At BYU, Air Force, at Houston, at Liberty. I mean, this is a tough schedule for a team that was in the FCS literally last year. New Mexico State's defense is ranked just 123rd. The worst Sam Houston's seen so far in the season is on the road at Houston. Now, obviously, Houston's defense has been pretty ass this year, but they're in the Big 12. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough spot for Sam Houston State to go on the road at Houston. I think the Sam Houston offense is going to have opportunities to score in this game. I mean, they're starting to come to life, too. Maybe they just needed a few weeks to get warmed up in the FBS. Through their first 3 games, they averaged 3.3 points per game and 147.7 yards per game. In the last 2 games, 22 points a game and 381 yards a game. So they're coming to life a little bit. If you told me in the beginning of the season that in this game, Sam Houston State would be 0-5 and they'd be giving us a 3.5 line, I would say put your life savings on New Mexico State. But I mean, based on what we've seen, I actually think I'm going to take the points here. I'm leaning towards Sam Houston State plus 3.5. I'm trusting the defense. Defense travels. This won't be a big bet or anything, but I'm going to take them. Sam Houston State plus 3.5. If you want my top bets, parlays of the day, if you want to join our Discord, or you want to get in on the NFL Against the Spread giveaway contest, head over to KyleKirms.com. All the information's right there on the homepage. College football week 7, some Wednesday night Conference USA action. Keep in mind, these games are tough to predict. Remember to bet light, bet responsibly. Let's have some fun, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.